This isn't just a story, it's a cry from the soul of nature. He was barely more than a shadow, a whisper of life curled beneath the gnarled roots of an old pine tree, a sacred sentinel, standing alone in the frostbitten wilderness of Montana's glacier edge. Snowflakes danced in cruel spirals around him, settling gently onto his shivering back as if trying to tuck him into an icy grave. The gusts of winter didn't just howl, they mourned. The wind pushed past the trees, like a ghost searching for something lost. There, nearly invisible in the whiteout, lay a bobcat kitten no bigger than a pinnacone. Ice clung to the delicate tips of his ears like jagged glass. His tiny chest lifted so faintly, so weakly you'd have missed it if you blinked. No cries escaped his lips. No instinctual wail for his mother. Just a silence that matched the forest's. Breathless grief. He was fading, not just physically, but spiritually, slipping from the world like fog from a window pane. But the wild had one last heartbeat to offer, not from the sky, not from the snow, but from a golden retriever named Jasper. Trained not by humans, but by love, Jasper's bark tore through the storm like a flare through darkness, sharp and relentless. He lunged into the snowdrift with reckless urgency, his paws digging and flinging white powder into the air like smoke from a battle. Behind him, the River family stumbled from their vehicle, their boots crunching over twigs and ice. But Jasper paid them no mind. Something warm, something alive. Something calling to his heart was buried beneath the white. His nose found the shape, and his tongue met a frozen face, lifeless but not lost. And in that moment they saw it too, not a kitten but a miracle waiting to be awakened. A bobcat, barely a month old, emaciated, frostbitten, lifeless. Legs dangled, eyes sealed shut with frozen tears. But in Jasper's eyes burned something deeper than fear, hope, the righteous care for the needs of their animals. But the kindest acts of the wicked are cruel. An animal is calling, will you answer? The River family hadn't planned for this. No soul ever does. They were simply driving home after the holidays, weary-eyed and quiet, their SUV humming over icy roads like a lullaby wrapped in steel. Glacier National Park loomed around them, its towering pines heavy with snow, each one a monument of time and stillness. The children had dozed off in the back seat, unaware of the ancient silence pressing in from all sides. And then Jasper stirred. Something had shifted. The golden retriever's ears pricked, head tilted toward the tree line. He barked once, sharp, fractured, urgent, like a warning from the edge of heaven, and then chaos. Paws scratched. At the car door. The family pulled over, confused, thinking he needed to relieve himself. But the moment the door cracked open, Jasper was gone, a golden streak swallowed by white, his bark echoing behind him like a lighthouse in a blizzard. "Jasper!" The father called, but it was useless. The dog had heard something no human could, something buried, something sacred. The family tumbled into the snow, following the trail of flung-up powder and paw prints. Jasper stopped under an old pine. He was whining now, low, desperate, circling something hidden beneath the low branches. And when they reached it, time stopped. The mother gasped. The children froze. It wasn't a kitten. Not really. The wild spotted fur, the pointed ear. Tufts, this was a bobcat, a baby, a creature of the wild. But in this moment, it was something more, a message. A test. He wasn't moving. His fur was matted with ice, breath barely there, eyelids sealed like frost-kissed petals. When Jasper nudged him, the bobcat didn't even flinch. The father dropped to his knees, unzipped his coat, and without hesitation wrapped the tiny body in his arms. Cold soaked through his gloves, no one spoke. "He's not going to make it," the mother whispered, eyes wet. But Jasper sat beside them, his body pressed into the snow, watching with a stillness that screamed louder than any voice. "Try, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Humans are waiting. Prepare yourself for the wild to change your heart." They called him Finnegan, a name born from the ache of hope and the stubborn refusal to let go. The River family raced through the snow-glazed roads, the baby bobcat cradled like a miracle in the father's arms. The Wildlife Rehabilitation Center was their only destination, but fate had its own detour planned. The center was overwhelmed, its staff exhausted from winter's cruelty. The veterinarian examined Finnegan's limp body, his expression tight. "He won't survive the night in a cage," he said. "But if you're willing, take him, just for tonight. Keep him warm. Feed him slowly. Pray he moves." And so, against all rules of logic and instinct, Finnegan came home with them. A wild animal, a silent bundle of breath and frostbite, laid gently in the corner of their living room. They wrapped him in heating pads and soft blankets. They whispered his name like a secret prayer, but he didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even breathe loud enough to be sure he was still there. The children rotated shifts, sitting beside him with solemn eyes, whispering fairy tales in warmth. Into the air. The mother held the syringe of formula to his mouth, drop by drop, but Finnegan's lips remained sealed. And then Jasper, with the soul of a guardian and the silence of a saint, curled beside him. No licks, no nudges, just presence. His body, pressed to the kitten's side like a hearth built not from fire, but devotion. And in that sacred stillness, Finnegan's breath changed. Not much, but enough. Enough for hope to return. Even the smallest act of kindness can birth a kingdom of healing. This isn't just about rescue, it's about the wild choosing to love. That night, the River family didn't sleep. They lay awake in silence, listening for signs, for the hum of the heater, the soft shifting of blankets, and the faintest sound of two breaths, side by side. At dawn, Finnegan's mouth parted slightly, just a sliver of movement. Enough for one drop of formula to pass. It was life's whisper, a beginning. And it happened not because of medicine or luck, but because Jasper never moved. He became Finnegan's shadow. Through every hour of every day, Jasper lay beside him, head low, breath calm, heart sensed. When Finnegan stirred, Jasper's ears twitched. When Finnegan whimpered, Jasper sighed a quiet lullaby. Beneath this golden guardian, the wild began to awaken. Slowly, the kitten's muscles twitched. His tiny paws curled, unfurled. His limbs stretched like forgotten memories. Then one day, he pushed himself upright, and though he collapsed immediately, the house erupted in silent awe. Jasper's tail thumped once, soft and proud. The next day, Finnegan stood, barely, but he stood. He stumbled toward Jasper like a fawn finding its legs, and the dog watched with eyes that had seen too many winters, but never a miracle like this. The wolf will live with the lamb, and a little child will lead them. Some animals don't just find homes, they find souls to live beside. Finnegan didn't mind the sound of human life. The clatter of dishes, the thud of footsteps, the muffled giggles from behind bedroom doors, he welcomed it all. In fact, he nestled into it like a song he was born knowing. The scent of warm food, the echo of piano keys touched by small fingers, the sound of wind brushing through window panes at night, these were no longer foreign. They were his lullabies. He moved through the house not like a guest, but like a thread woven into its very fabric. When the family laughed, he perked up. When music played, he sat still, ears tilted toward the melody. The TV's hum didn't startle him. The vacuum cleaner earned a single annoyed blink before he returned to grooming his paws. He had chosen them, not the wild, not the shadowed thickets of the forest. This, them, that golden dog who never left his side. The children, who whispered stories. The mother who learned to warm formula with perfect patience. This wasn't just rescue, it was a covenant. A soul-deep, instinct-transcending bond that no word in the dictionary could capture. It wasn't ownership, it wasn't charity, it was friendship. Trust, love, but beneath the rising rhythm of healing, the Rivers family felt an ache creeping in, like the way frost creeps across glass before you even notice it. Finnegan was a wild animal, and no matter how gently he batted at toys with his paw, no matter how sweetly he pressed his head to Jasper's neck, no matter how he purred like a house cat when the children brushed his fur, there was a truth they couldn't outrun. Nature was calling. Someday it would wake up inside him. Upon examination, if deemed healthy, it is required by state law that the animal be released into its natural habitat. No exceptions. The room went still. The words echoed like wind through empty trees. No one spoke. Not even Jasper. He just sat, eyes locked on Finnegan, who lay curled beneath a soft throw blanket, blissfully unaware. He blinked up at the golden dog, trusting as always. He didn't know what was coming, but the family did. And for the first time since that snowy night beneath the pine tree, they felt helpless. The day of the transfer was cold again, not from weather, but from absence. The car ride was a funeral of unspoken grief. The children sat with their faces pressed to the glass, cheeks streaked with silent tears. The mother rested one hand on Jasper's thick fur, the other gently cradling the pet carrier that now held the creature they all called family. At the Wildlife Center, everything was by the book, protocol, forms, gentle hands, measured tones. No one asked if this felt right. They opened the carrier, expecting a wild animal. What they got was something else entirely. Finnegan turned slowly, not to the humans, but to Jasper. The golden retriever stood frozen near the door, ears low, tail still, eyes wide and locked. Finnegan met his gaze. It wasn't fear, it wasn't confusion, it was knowing. A deep, silent understanding that passed like a thread between two souls. And then the moment was gone. They carried Finnegan away. That night, Jasper didn't eat, didn't move. He sat by the window until the sky turned black, and the stars came out in pity. The Lord is near to the broken-hearted and saves the crushed. In spirit, a dog mourned a bobcat, and the world felt it. In the cold hush of the following morning, before sunlight crept through the curtains, the River family found Jasper lying in front of Finnegan's now empty blanket. In his mouth, carefully placed, was the little toy mouse Finnegan had once batted around the living room with clumsy joy. He set it down gently, like an offering, then curled beside it, not sleeping, not resting, just being still and heavy. The food in his bowl remained untouched for 3 days. He didn't run to the door when the kids came home from school. Didn't lift his head when the mother whispered his name. The laughter that had once danced through the house like sunlight now echoed hollow. The children's questions hurt more than silence. Why did they take him? Why can't he stay if he's happy? But he's ours. There were no right answers, just rules. At the center, Finnegan was tested and examined, blood work, weight, vital signs, healthy, strong, ready, but no one tested his soul. No. One noticed that he didn't hiss, that he didn't climb, that he didn't gaze longingly toward the forest canopy beyond the fence. He didn't sniff the wind like something waiting for its kin, because his kin wasn't out there. It had been a golden dog, a child's hand, a quiet home filled with songs and stories, but the law didn't see any of that. It saw only species, recovery, checklist. The wild does not belong in living rooms. No matter what love says, what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. What do you do when a heart keeps looking for what it already lost? A week passed. The house, once so full of motion and sound, now felt like it had stopped breathing. Even the floors seemed to creak with sorrow. Wind brushed past the windows like whispers, but no one looked up. Jasper barely moved from the front window, a silent sentinel watching for a shadow that might return. Morning to night he sat in the same spot, eyes unblinking, tail unmoving, breath slow and weighted. He ignored his toys, rejected his meals. The children called his name, offered him treats, begged him to chase balls across the hardwood. Nothing. Sometimes, in the dark hours between midnight and dawn, a sound would echo through the house. Low and soft, a mournful whine, not a bark, not a howl, but something smaller, something broken, like the sound of a heart remembering. He searched the rooms, slowly, methodically. He sniffed under couches, behind doors, beneath the blanket Finnegan once curled into, as if retracing memories, trying to find the point where it all slipped away. And still, every morning, he returned to the window, watching, waiting, hoping. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. Sometimes the wild returns, not for food, not for shelter, but for love. The house had begun to feel less like a home and more like a memory. Each room still carried traces of Finnegan's soft tufts of fur clinging to corners, toys no one dared to move, an old blanket folded and placed gently into the basket where he once slept. Jasper had nosed at it now and then tentatively, as if trying to summon a scent too faint for even his loyal heart to hold on to. The dog bed they used to share sat untouched in the corner, hollow in a way no furniture should be. Finnegan had once explored the house like it was his own. Now his absence pulsed in every creak of the floorboards. It wasn't just that he was gone, it was like a part of the house had been carved out and carried into the forest, leaving only stillness in its place. Finally, unable to bear the weight of unknowing, the mother picked up the phone. Her fingers trembled slightly as she dialed. Her voice, when she spoke, cracked under the strain of hope. "We were wondering, the Bobcat, Finnegan, how is he?" A pause. Then came the answer like frost on skin. "He was released 3 days ago," the voice replied, matter of fact. "Near the edge of Glacier. Not far from where you first found him. We followed protocol." The line stayed open, but the conversation was over. The family hung up in silence. They understood, they did. The mountains, the cold wind, the whispering trees. That was his birthplace, his nature. The wilderness that had nearly claimed his life now welcomed him back. But Jasper didn't understand policy. He didn't understand ecosystems or laws. All he knew was that his friend, his brother, had vanished, and no one had told him goodbye. Even the sparrow has found a home. A place near your altar, O Lord of hosts. And just when the silence felt eternal, the wild answered back. Winter began to loosen its hold. The icicles that once dripped like daggers from rooftops melted into soft puddles along the edges of the yard. The white fields gave way to patches of brown earth and stubborn green shoots. The wind, once so biting, now carried warmth, a whisper of spring. But inside the house, the season had not changed. Jasper still sat vigil by the window, eyes locked on the horizon. The toy mouse lay where he had placed it, untouched. The children had grown quieter, the music was softer. The joy, though present, had dulled. Then, one late afternoon, something unusual appeared. Tracks, paw prints, delicate but distinct, traced. A winding path from the forest's edge straight to the back porch. Too round for a dog. Too large for a domestic cat. Too light for a coyote. They were familiar, hauntingly. So, the family rushed to check the motion-activated camera. The footage was grainy, blurred by the early dusk, but unmistakable. A shadow crept across the screen, low to the ground, moving with silent grace, muscular, wild, ears tall and proud. A short tail curled behind it. A bobcat. Finnegan. The next morning, Jasper stirred before anyone else. He pressed his nose to the window pane and let out a sound the family hadn't heard in weeks. A low, rising whine that broke into urgency. His paws scratched at the glass with intent. The family gathered quickly, hearts pounding. And there, just at the edge of the yard where the trees met the field, stood a miracle. He will bring you back, because his compassions never fail. In the space between wilderness and home, love returned. Finnegan was taller now. No longer the trembling infant they had cradled in blankets, but a sleek, radiant embodiment of survival. His coat shimmered in the amber glow of the rising sun, a palette of gold and rust and soft grays, like the forest itself had painted him in secret. Muscles rippled beneath his fur. His eyes gleamed sharp and steady, but there was no wild fear in them, just recognition. He didn't move, didn't flinch. He stood there, perfectly still, watching the house that had once cradled him from the edge of death. Then, slowly, with intention, not caution, Finnegan lowered himself to the ground, legs folded beneath him, gaze unwavering, a sign, a gesture of peace. Of return, the family opened the back door and Jasper bolted like his soul had been unleashed. He crossed the yard in wild, golden strides, paws flying, ears flapping. He didn't hesitate, he didn't stop. Finnegan stood. And then they met. In the middle of a field that held no fences, no expectations, just truth. Two creatures born of opposite worlds collided in a moment that made time pause. Jasper nudged Finnegan gently. Finnegan brushed his head against Jasper's shoulder. There was no noise except the whisper of trees. But the world, somehow, felt louder than it had in weeks. Mercy and truth have met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed. Not all returns are permanent, but some are eternal. Now Finnegan roams the forest. He climbs ancient branches and stalks shadows through the underbrush. He is at last what he was born to be, wild, free, unbound. But every evening, as the sun slips behind the pines and the last light brushes the sky with gold, he returns, not to beg, not to stay, but to remember. He and Jasper meet in the clearing behind the house, two silhouettes against the twilight, side by side, brother and brother. No leash, no collar, no chain, only understanding. They circle each other in slow joy, paws brushing through tall grass.